Carl and Liam here from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial.com for sure. And it's getting Goosebumps season 2 as we continue our way through it to what is, in my opinion, one of the most dark and, for an age group, scary episodes they've done, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, an interesting thing to note is back in 2014, I did a top 10 of my favorite episode of Goosebumps, and I actually placed this as number 1.
Ooh.
So,
ooh.
Yeah.
I would certainly, being in the top, obviously I'd have to see all the rest to compare it, but I can see why. I thought this was great from beginning to end. Told a brilliant story, did the right things, and its twists and stuff like that were clever, and I didn't see them coming, that kind of thing. So yeah. It's the Headless Ghost.
I remember this one very well.
I didn't remember it at all. I don't think I've ever seen it. Directed by Brrraaains A Head-Banging and written by Dan Angel and Billy Brown. Book number 37 of the original book series. We begin looking at a lighthouse from a distance and then up close with booming music. That boom, boom. I got a very old school horror movie vibe from this opening.
Definitely.
Cut to a big house on a dark night and we hear a boy saying, "Are you there?" while looking at the window. Again, that booming music as it cuts like boom, boom, boom up to him. And I was like, that's kind of cool, man. I like that.
Yeah, I noted that the soundtrack in the episode definitely adds to the sense of dread throughout the whole thing.
Agreed. Inside the room, he asks, "Where are you? And if you're here, show yourself." So he's kind of talking out loud to something. And a woman bursts in, calls him Andrew. Andrew is played by Daniel Goodfellow. Demands to know why he isn't in bed. And instantly, based on the outfits and the fact that she's holding a candle, like a lantern, I was like, okay, cool. It's not modern times. So I thought the whole episode was going to be set in old times, but that's not the case.
No.
Where are you?
Andrew? Why aren't you in bed?
I was just going, Mama.
That's a likely story. You were looking for that ghost again, weren't you?
No, I wasn't, Mama. Honest.
This is his mother, and she accuses him of looking for a ghost. She insists there's no ghost in the house, and he promises to go to bed. He said, the only annoying thing, he says, "Mama," about 6 times here. "Okay, Mama, I'll go to bed, Mama. Thank you, Mama." Whoa, dude. Whoa. She leaves, and he tries to call the ghost again, but is startled by a cat. Cat! That one of those scares. A weird glowing effect then appears, and then, which is terrible. But then we switch to shadows on the wall. And I'm like, that's how you do this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the budget, you know?
Yeah, because we get a really clever large figure with long fingers, and because it's shadow, it gives a really good effect of it.
Yeah. And
he's confronting Andrew, telling him that he can't leave now that he has seen him. Andrew begs, and we cut to an old woman asking what happens next. Love this transition. Love it. It's a classic transition. In fact, didn't they use a very similar transition in A Night in Terror Tower?
That's very true. They did. Very similar.
Please.
And then what happened? What did the ghost do?
It's actually a ghost tour at Andrew's house in modern times. Apparently, we hear the ghost ripped off Andrew's head. And I was like, damn, I'd have loved to see that.
That'd have been cool.
It would have been cool. But I like it because it's like, even the story being told, that's horrifying. Because we saw the before of the shadowy figure standing above Andrew. So your mind automatically conjures up
yeah, the fact that, you know, they're not going to show it because it's a kid's show at the end of the day. But the fact that they even are saying that took place at all is that itself is like, whoa, that's quite strong stuff, man.
It is. I'm very impressed. It's not the only impressive death thing they would do. There's a group, but the main focus of this group is a teenage boy and a young girl, the latter who was given a scare by a teenage girl under a couch. We get a kind of flurry here. We can't quite work out who is supposed to be the main characters at all. But thankfully, we'll come down to the boy and the girl. Boy's called Dwayne Kenny Vardas, and Stephanie is the girl played by Adriane Bendia. And they're both kicked out of the house as we found out that the house is called Hill House. And admittedly, I was like, fuck off, R.L. Stine.
Yeah, I was like, Hill House, really?
Yeah, really? So these two teenagers, because they are teenagers. Stephanie loved scaring the little girl. He thought she went a bit too far. And she calls them the twin terrors of Wheeler Fall. And for some reason, I don't know why I got it because it's not the same place, but I heard Wheeler fall, and I just thought of Alan Wake.
That was excellent. Did you see the look on that little girl's face?
We went too far that time. She was really scared.
That's the point, Dwayne. The twin terrors of Wheeler Falls strike again.
But that's Bright Falls.
Bright Falls, yeah.
Yeah. But I got an image, particularly because of the landscape. I was like, that kind of town.
Yeah, it does feel kind of like that.
Yeah, Twin Peaks-esque.
Yeah, for sure.
He says they're getting too old for this sort of scare stuff. She then suggests they come back tomorrow night, sneak away from the group, and look for the head of Andrew, because it's rumored that Andrew's head is somewhere in the house. Obviously, it's just a ghost story.
Yeah.
Dwayne isn't so sure, but she browbeats him into agreeing to come. We should say they are siblings, by the way. But we see they're being watched by a dude, some boy in the distance, a teenager. And Ola was like, well, that dude's pale. That's a ghost. You know?
Don't give it away.
Yes. The next night, we're hearing the history of the house from the guy that runs the house, basically, the guys. This is Otto, played by Dennis O'Connor. He tells a story about a sea captain who came home to find his wife shacked up with another man. And he was so upset about it, he died and swore nasty shit on anyone who lived in the house. Or ghosts. That part's a little bit weird. Like, I swear vengeance on anybody that lives in this house. Fine. But I will also swear vengeance on anybody that takes the piss out of ghosts.
Despair. It was over 150 years ago that a sea captain built this house for his lady love. When he came back from a sea voyage, he found his beloved had left him for another man. The poor captain died of a broken heart, but his enraged spirit lived on, taking revenge upon anyone who dared live in this house and upon anyone who mocked the ghosts within.
Okay?
Yeah.
That last part, though, Otto says, and he looks directly at Dwayne and Stephanie specifically. So I actually kind of forgave it directly afterwards because, like, oh, he's just adding that on because he wants to get those two kids.
He's just selling his whole shtick, man.
That's it, shtick, exactly. The new group follows Otto up the stairs as he points out portraits of the house's victims. Now, let's talk about the house as a whole. It is really well done. It's got a great vibe to it. It's in almost constant darkness, but lit via little flames here and there. It looks old. The portraits are silly, but they look good for what they are. I got a good vibe from the house.
Yeah, it looked like a creepy place to explore, like by yourself, for sure.
Indeed, indeed. So it's while Otto was retelling the Andros story, because obviously every night he does the same thing for new tours, the pair decide to sneak off and into a forbidden area. So obviously, like a lot of places you go to, you'll find chains saying no entry to this area. This house has them too. And as they sneak past one of these chains, we see that same pale teenager watching them. They end up sneaking into the old sea captain's study and start messing around with stuff, as kids often do. You know they're going to get in shit for it.
Little bastards.
Dwayne is then scared by some shark teeth, because he's an idiot. And Stephanie insists they must stay till they find their head. And it's so annoying as she is literally looking in corners and drawers. Like, she's like, I'll open this drawer. And I was like, yeah, because that's where a head's going to be, isn't it? No one ever found before. But she still manages to trick Dwayne. She's like, oh, I found it. And Dwayne's like, what? And she's like, oh, you sucker. I'm like, yeah, Dwayne, you are a fucking sucker. She then opens a cupboard and acts scared, insisting that she isn't kidding. But again, she is. And even, I love the fact that even Dwayne himself is disappointed in his own behavior. He's like, oh, I can't believe I fell for that one.
Yeah.
Like, yes, Dwayne, yes.
Dwayne, this time I'm not kidding.
What?
Look.
Where? Is it the head? Oh, man, I can't believe I fell for that twice.
But they then hear someone coming, so hide inside. Literally 2 seconds later, Otto finds them. Like, it's not even like a tension scene. They hide in the cupboard, Otto opens it and finds them. And it's like, oh, okay, that was that. He kicks them out again. He kicks them out of the house, and this time says they're not welcome anymore, which is, yeah, probably about time you just tell these kids not to come back.
Just ban them.
Yeah.
That's the way.
Stephanie is annoyed about this and throws a snowball at the door, and we see the eyes of the door knocker light up. Okay, so spooky shit's about to go down. The two siblings start to argue, but are then startled by the pale dude, who is called Seth and played by Sean Ryan. He says he can show them real ghosts. They just have to wait until the house is closed and everyone is gone. And he says he sneaked in late at night. And I'm convinced. I'm like, yeah, he's going to show them a ghost and be like, I'm the ghost. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yes. But I will give this episode credit. It's a lot more complex and detailed than that.
Yep.
As the tourists leave, Seth gets them to hide and suggests they sneak in tonight. Stephanie is up for it because Stephanie is like blood hungry, man. She is ghost hungry. But Dwayne isn't. Seth mocks him and Stephanie kind of sides with Seth. And it's like, fuck you, sister. So obviously being mocked, don't call me yellow, all that bollocks, Dwayne reluctantly agrees. And later that night, we see Seth lighting a candle as the trio are now inside the house. We never see how they sneak in. They're just inside. He leads them upstairs to a part of the house that isn't on the tour. Inside a room, he shows them a dumbwaiter and he tells a story about a spoiled boy who liked to eat strawberry ice cream. He really liked to eat it. And we do a cool thing here. We kind of see this in short flashbacks as we kind of flash back to this sort of greedy boy. You never see his face and he's eating like this ice cream greedily and pulling his bell to demand more ice cream. I got a real kind of like horror short-esque thing from this.
Yeah, definitely. I really think it's a great story, man.
Yeah, particularly as this boy died when the dumbwaiter didn't come all the way up. So the dumbwaiter that brings him ice cream didn't come all the way up. And he was so desperate for the ice cream, he reached in and fell to his death. And what I love is we cut to the maid opening the dumbwaiter and screaming. And I was like, oh, awesome.
Ice cream. He just couldn't get enough ice cream. Well, one day, the dumbwaiter didn't come all the way up. The boy reached, and he reached, until finally, he reached too far when the maid found him at the bottom of the shaft.
Kill two kids in one episode.
Hell yeah. And again, while not showing it, you're giving us enough to get your imagination picturing it.
That's pushing, like, you know, you've got your age rating and you're pushing it to the line as far as you can go, man.
Hell yeah. Loving it. Loving it. But Seth also says that, like, they say the boy fell, but others say he was pushed. Dun, dun, dun. Stephanie, unimpressed, wants to see a real ghost. Dwayne is still being a scaredy cat, unsure. But looking at the dumbwaiter, he doesn't want to be left alone in that room. They go up to the basically, Seth leads them to the captain's secret room, which I was like, it's an attic. There is nothing secret about this room. It's an attic.
That's true.
Seth says the captain's ghost paints a picture of his latest victim. Seth then locks the door and says he can't let them leave. And I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. But admittedly, I did think this was going to be, haha, fooled you, scared you.
Yeah.
But he reveals that he is Andrew and that he borrowed someone else's head that he will have to return. He now wants Dwayne's. And I do like the character, the actor's acting here. He's super sinister. He's kind of just explaining himself. But the problem is he's talking quite a lot. And it doesn't make any sense because you're like, well, Andrew died at a young age. Why would he be older?
I lied to you. My name isn't Seth. It's Andrew. It's been Andrew for over 100 years.
But you can't be Andrew. Andrew lost his head.
This isn't my head. I borrowed it. Well, I have to return it.
So you're like,
how old is he supposed to be? Hard to say, but
yeah. He continues to advance on Dwayne, explaining in detail how he will take Dwayne's head off. I'm like, the fuck is this episode's dark, man?
Yeah, it's true.
But I really like the patter here. I love the patter as Dwayne, backing off, tries to offer first a help, but as Andrew points out, he's looked everywhere for the head. And Andrew also then points out that he can't take Stephanie's head because obviously that would just look weird. And then Dwayne tries to undersell his own head. Well, you wouldn't want my head. It's not that good. It's not got this. It's not got that. I'm like, this is quite funny.
My head's not that great either. I mean, it gets allergies. It's not that good at math, and Its hair never does what you want it to.
Nice try, Dwayne.
The dumbwaiter then arrives, and the two go to get in it, but actually find the head of Andrew inside. The ghostly head of the actual Andrew. And unfortunately, the effect is not great. He makes a pithy comment about expecting ice cream. Like, what were you expecting? Ice cream?
What were you expecting? A dish of ice cream?
Your head. Now you don't have to take mine.
It's okay. And he calls his ghostly body over, which has now just appeared. It's like his ghostly body's just there. And we get some sort of comedy moment as the body picks the head but drops it on the floor. And it's like a bit of a sort of silly moment.
Yeah, trying to lighten the vibe, I think, a little bit, because it's got pretty dark and sinister.
True, agreed. But the pair are properly reunited and then just disappear. And it seems like that's done. Stephanie then turns around to confront Seth, but Otto arrives. And he explains that Seth used to work for him. He shows Dwayne the way out, but asks to speak to Stephanie alone. And like, alarm bells, guys?
Yeah.
Like, it's alarm bells, isn't it?
Definitely.
Dwayne leaves, though, and Otto reveals himself to be the captain, but as a ghost. And he then begins painting a portrait because he paints a portrait of his victim, and it's a portrait of Stephanie. Seth then appears as a ghost, revealing that he was the ice cream boy.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, this is cool. I'm down with all of this stuff. It's quite complex and quite a lot of things happening at once, but I think it works.
I think it does.
Yeah.
Now, my cocky little friend.
What are you doing, Otto?
That's Captain Otto to you. Welcome aboard.
But for whatever reason, Andrew then reappears too. So we see that Otto is painting Stephanie's picture, and he says he warned her about showing respect. Going down the stairs, Dwayne hears her scream, so obviously he rushes back up. As Otto goes to finish the painting, Dwayne bursts in and throws water over it, destroying it. The pair run for their lives as Otto rages and chases after them, but they manage to escape though. And that's the end of like the main portion of the story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometime later, we see a sold sign outside the house, and a couple are talking to an estate agent about how it's perfect for them. And they heard tours used to happen here. As they go inside, the estate agent turns around to reveal that he is Otto. So there's your final Goosebumps little scare.
You understand they used to give tours here?
We heard the place was haunted.
Haunted, right? And I'm a ghost. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll be very happy here. Very heavy.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Strong episode. Very strong episode.
Yeah, I've just always been a huge fan of this episode. Always really stuck with me because I think of how dark it is. Like, there's not many episodes in the series that I think push it as far as this one does in terms of like having actual death in it.
Several.
Yeah, and it's always the story of like the whole boy that was obsessed with eating ice cream and then he falls down the dumbwaiter. That whole thing always stuck with me, and yeah, I think that the twist also of Otto being the sea captain is pretty cool. I don't think you necessarily call that one coming, but it's not like a super out there twist that there normally is where it's like too ridiculous. It's like makes sense because he does the tours in the house and stuff like that, so he's kind of bound to the house like the other ghosts. Yeah, and you mentioned before how the episodes before this one, the horror elements were lacking, and they're certainly not in this one. So it's kind of like a return to what you would expect and hope to see in Goosebumps, and like in a big way, which is interesting because I mentioned in the last episode about how maybe they were going for a more childish like direction in the first 3 episodes. And it's like if you were a child and you got into the Goosebumps season 2 and you're watching these nice episodes about a boy that becomes a superhero and a silly episode about magic, and then this episode comes along and it like, yeah, it might like shock you a little bit, which maybe that was the intention, to like sort of lull you into the false sense of security type thing. Who knows?
It's completely fair as well, because I think its imagery is quite important in these Goosebumps to scare children. And this is on par with the Haunted Mask in regards to the imagery of the mask itself. And also the monster one, what the fuck was it called? You Can't Scare Me? No, the monster one from season 1 with the guy with the bug eyes. What was the episode called? The Girl Who Cried Monster.
That's it.
The Girl Who Cried Monster for imagery. This one does a lot of that as well. But what it does more better than any other episode is it creates the atmosphere that's required to tell a ghost story without showing you ghosts at first.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm just like I'm a sucker for like a haunted house story with like malevolent ghosts like bound to the house that are seeking revenge, and they're not good ghosts. You know, I hate good ghost tropes and things. So they are actually like these, you know, spirits that are like tormented, you know, and they weren't necessarily the nicest people in their lives either, you know. I quite like that. And I thought the acting in it throughout the episode is really strong, probably some of the strongest to date. Yeah, and the effects aren't too bad. I know you mentioned the ghost effect, obviously not great. It has that sort of, again, sort of like cheesy, old school, ghostly
It's got a
thing going on.
look about it.
Yeah, it's got that whole spectral thing going on. So, but yeah, I think it's a really strong episode. Definitely one of my favorites.
Its flaws are things I'm very easy to forgive. Things I wish they'd done just to kind of correct the course. I don't understand why they made Seth pale. He gave the game away.
Yeah, that's true. Kind of
how
like
he was Ghost, just
yeah,
looking like a normal kid.
That's true. He's very grey looking.
I also don't understand the whole Headless Andrew thing, where he gets his head back, disappears, but then reappears afterwards. I didn't really get that. I think that could have come, that reveal, like when Otto was painting the picture and they were trying to escape, they go to the dumbwaiter then, and then reveal his head, and he puts it on, and then he's one of the ghosts part of it. Then,
yeah, the timing could have been better. That's for sure. Yeah,
but these are all small complaints in a very strong, very concise, very to the point. But it's such a short story to tell. It fits. It feels like a horror short, and that's good.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those ones where, you know, you could adapt the sort of story to like a proper horror movie. You know, there's been a few of those. This is one of them, I think.
Yeah, if I was to compare this to any movie, I'd compare it to something like The Haunting, the modern one.
Well, it is Hill House, isn't it? So.
There is that. You got any thoughts? Let us know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Tumblr. Go to Patreon and help us out over there. That's patreon.com/gbhbl, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?